The security guard's hand on my elbow felt like a verdict, and the words my mother spat into the phone that night, "You've ruined us," still echoed in my ears as I stared at the empty parking lot of the plant where I'd spent 10 years building cars that were supposed to keep people safe. I had just been escorted out after blowing the whistle on fabricated safety reports. The news had already painted me a traitor, and the humiliation was fresh enough to taste. My family had never believed in me, but hearing my own sister say, "You're just an embarrassment now," while I clutched my cardboard box of personal belongings, turned the sting into a fire I could not ignore. I drove straight to my parents' house not to beg for forgiveness, but to tell them what I would do next. The living room was dim, the scent of old cigars lingering in the air. My father looked up from his newspaper, eyebrows knotted. "You think you can just walk away from a steady paycheck and start some hobby," he said, voice low but cutting. My mother added, "Robotic prosthetics for poor people. You'll end up living in a garage begging for scraps." Their laughter was polite, but the message was clear. I was chasing a ridiculous dream, and they would not waste a second of their time or their pride on it. I left that night with nothing but a duffel bag of clothes, a laptop full of half-finished CAD files, and a promise to myself. I would build affordable robotic prosthetics for amputees, no matter how many doors slammed in my face. The industry elites had already sneered at the idea, calling it impossible tech for the underprivileged. My family's mockery was just another layer of doubt I had to scrape off. I rented a one-bedroom apartment whose walls were thin enough to hear the neighbor's TV. I turned the spare room into a workshop, scavenging motors from discarded power chairs, batteries from old laptops, and sensors from broken smartphones. Nights blurred into mornings as I soldered, coded, and printed parts on a cheap 3D printer I bought with the last of my savings. Each failed prototype felt like a personal indictment, my family's voices echoing, "You'll never make it work." Yet every time a joint moved a fraction smoother, I felt a whisper of validation that no external applause could match. Months passed and the first functional arm emerged, a crude, cable-driven device that could grasp a cup without shaking. I took it to a local veterans center where a young Marine named Lewis, missing his right forearm from an IED, agreed to test it. His eyes widened when he lifted a water bottle without assistance. It's like I have a hand again," he whispered. That moment was the first crack in the wall of ridicule. It proved that affordable prosthetics could restore dignity, not just function. Word spread slowly but surely. A small non-profit offered a grant after seeing Lewis's story on a community blog. I used the funds to refine the design, swapping out cables for lightweight actuators and adding intuitive muscle signal controls. The second iteration was lighter, stronger, and could be produced for under $800, a fraction of the cost of comparable devices on the market. I posted a video of Lewis playing catch with his daughter. Within weeks, it garnered hundreds of thousands of views. Engineers from universities reached out, offering collaboration, and the whispers of impossible began to sound like admiration. The real test came when I partnered with an agricultural cooperative in a region where abandoned farms lay fallow because many workers had lost limbs in accidents and could no longer labor the land. I fitted several farmers with the prosthetic arms, training them to use the tools they once abandoned. Watching a man who had not held a hoe in years till the soil again was nothing short of miraculous. Fields that had been barren for seasons sprouted green shoots. The land began to heal as people returned to work. The prosthetic wasn't just a device, it became a catalyst for ecological revival, turning desolation into thriving ecosystems. Awards followed, innovation prizes, humanitarian accolades, invitations to speak at global conferences. My name appeared in magazines alongside pioneers of medical tech. Yet the loudest echo remained the memory of my family's disbelief. 2 years after that first successful field test, I received an invitation to speak at the annual Hometown Festival, an event my parents had always boasted about attending. I accepted not for the applause but to let them see with their own eyes what the ridiculous dream had become. The day arrived under a bright summer sky. The town square was filled with banners, food stalls, and a stage draped in the colors of our local high school. As I stepped up to the mic, I spotted my parents near the back, my father's arms crossed, my mother clutching a folded program. My younger sister stood beside them, arms folded, a skeptical smirk playing on her lips. I began my story, voice steady but carrying the weight of every sleepless night. I was once told I'd fail, that my ideas were an embarrassment, that I should stick to something real. I lost a job, I lost trust, I lost the belief of those who were supposed to love me most. I paused, letting the words settle, then gestured to the side where a young woman, Maria, a local teacher who had lost her left arm in a farming accident, stood, her prosthetic arm glinting in the sun. She lifted a basket of fresh produce, laughed, and waved at the crowd. This, I said, is what happens when we refuse to let ridicule dictate our worth. This arm costs less than a month's rent for many families, yet it allows a mother to hold her child, a farmer to feed his village, a teacher to write on a board without assistance. I gestured again to the fields beyond the square, where tractors moved and rows of corn swayed, land that had been idle just a few years ago, now alive because people could work it again. My mother's eyes glistened. She wiped them quickly with the corner of her program. My father's stern expression softened, his shoulders dropping as if a weight he didn't know he'd been carrying had lifted. My sister's smirk faded, replaced by a quiet awe. After the speech, they pushed through the crowd, each step hesitant, as if approaching a miracle they'd once dismissed. My mother reached out, touching the prosthetic arm on Maria's shoulder. It's beautiful," she whispered, voice trembling. My father cleared his throat, eyes meeting mine for the first time in years. I didn't understand," he said. "I thought you were throwing your life away." My sister, eyes wet, added, "I'm sorry I called you ridiculous. You turned our doubt into something that feeds people." I felt a surge of emotion that was not triumph alone, but relief, a quiet validation that the years of solitary labor had not been in vain. We stood there, the town humming around us, the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers filling the air. In that moment, the past betrayals, both corporate and familial, were not erased, but they were transformed into lessons carved into my very bones. Walking home later that evening, I reflected on the road that had taken me from a disgraced engineer to a builder of hope. The ridicule had sharpened my resolve, the betrayal had taught me to trust my own vision. The hard work had shown me that true success is measured not by applause but by the lives we lift. If there's a lesson to share, it's this: when the world calls your dream ridiculous, listen to the whisper inside that says, "Try anyway." Let the doubter's words become the fuel that powers your persistence. And when you finally stand where they once scoffed, you'll see that the greatest revenge isn't bitterness, it's the quiet, undeniable proof that you turned their scorn into a sanctuary for others. Our worth isn't given by others. It's forged in the fire of our own perseverance, and when we keep feeding that fire, the world inevitably warms to its glow.